Hello, happy Monday, and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for August 26th, 2024. The 239th day of the year, the fourth and final Monday of the month, and it's hashtag National Dog Day. A big day on social media, right? Man's best friend, and what amazing animals they are. Hope you had a terrific and safe weekend doing the things you love to do. If you took a break from politics over the weekend and maybe watched the Little League World Series, Lake Mary, Florida is essentially Orlando. It's a popular suburb, basically where I live. So it was an exciting weekend around here for sure. Lake Mary first beat a team from Texas and then beat Taipei, China for the championship yesterday. So congratulations to all involved. Incredible memories of a lifetime for the kids and for the parents alike. Harrison Burton, the son of NASCAR champion and NBC announcer Jeff Burton, won the Coke Zero 400 at Daytona International Speedway, about 30 minutes up the road from me as well. In overtime, it didn't rain for the first time in 3 or maybe 4 years, thankfully, so it was a great night for the NASCAR fans. We had a bunch of preseason NFL over the weekend as well, which of course a lot of people are happy about. Today, August 26th, is also National Women's Equality Day, celebrating the progress and achievements of women from the suffrage movement to the 19th Amendment in 1920 to the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which made it possible for all women to vote. And now, 59 years later, for the second time, we have a woman presidential nominee. And for the first time, a woman of color. Vice President Harris, the DNC, former President Trump, who was on the trail all weekend, RFK Jr.'s endorsement of Trump, as well as a violent weekend in the Middle East, Israel and Hezbollah exchanging missiles between the Holy Land and Lebanon. Those stories dominating the weekend news and the weekend talk shows. Let's start it off with Newsmax host Tom Basile and Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt on America Right Now.
Senator, good to see you again. It kind of ended up sort of being like a Seinfeld episode. It seemed to me to be sort of a convention about nothing, except attacking Donald Trump some 270 times. What stood out most to you?
So much joy, Tom. There was just so much joy in that. It's like, it was unbelievable. And to paraphrase Marie Antoinette, I think the response to people who are hurting in this country was, let them eat joy. I mean, it was really carefully scripted, all about Donald Trump. And here's one thing that we know, that they know, and, you know, they didn't want to admit, which is they can't run on anything. You know, she's the incumbent here. Her administration has destroyed jobs, made energy more expensive, made everything more expensive. The border is wide open. She was the border czar. So there's no talk about that. There's no talk of solutions. And this comes on top of really a coup for her to get there. She never received the primary vote. And I think once she's further exposed, you know, sort of like the backup quarterback, you know, there's a lot of talk about the backup quarterback till the backup quarterback actually has to get on the field. And then you reason why, you understand why the backup quarterback was the backup quarterback. So I think we're entering that phase of the campaign now, which is hopefully she's going to have to answer some real questions. And this is clearly a weak spot for her. They know it. So they had this production going on for the week, but it won't distract from the real issues. And I think that's what this campaign is going to be all about.
I mean, you have to hand it to him. It was very well produced. It looked really good on TV, but she really didn't say very much of anything. Yesterday, however, somebody did say something. Robert F. Kennedy gave a clear and aggressive takedown of the Democratic Party as he endorsed President Trump. Here's what he said led him to that decision. Watch.
It ran a sham primary that was rigged to prevent any serious challenge to President Biden. Then, when a predictably bungled debate performance precipitated the palace coup against President Biden, the same shadowy DNC operatives appointed his successor, also without an election.
Senator, how does this endorsement impact the political landscape now leading up to November, do you think?
So I think it's way more significant than, of course, the mainstream media is giving credit, you know, for the endorsement, because there's a couple things going on here. One is the Kennedy name is iconic in the Democrat Party, right? It's iconic. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. also attracts a lot of support from independent-minded folks. If you look at any poll, he was polling, 5-8% in many places that he was on the ballot. So his endorsement, in places like Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin, where there are disaffected voters who are frustrated, who, by the way, I think he speaks uniquely to some of the folks during COVID who saw the abuses of the Democrat Party, right? They saw the tyranny that existed, the COVID tyranny. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I think for people who were looking for a home in him as sort of a dissident, as a voice of dissent, now they move squarely into the Donald Trump column. That small group, and it doesn't need to be a bunch of people. Like these elections in those swing states are going to come down to 1 or 2 percentage points. Yeah. So I think it's significant. But look, you're going to see the mainstream media discount this, but I think it's way more significant than people think.
Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt, who had this reaction to the Obama's messaging at the DNC.
Well, a couple things. First of all, the house, the beach home they have on Martha's Vineyard, you also know they're not very concerned about so-called, the climate because they're right on the coast. So there's so much hypocrisy in these statements from the Obamas. I think to me, it was a reminder of how divisive the Obamas really are. If you want to understand where our politics really took a detour, it's the Obama years, promising hope and joy, ironically, right? These sorts of code words to come in and utilize and weaponize identity politics. So critical race theory, all of these sorts of things that divide the room by race. This originated with the Obamas and their strategy. And so here we are now, and I think that they have crossed the Rubicon, the Democrats have. We're not having discussions like Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan about marginal tax rates. This is about total power and control. They have said, Tom, that they will add states to the Union and pack the Supreme Court if they ever have the trifecta of the majority. So this is a very different world we're living in, and why this election cycle is so important. They cannot be successful. They've weaponized the Justice Department. They have, made life harder for working families. They have to pay a price at in November, and I think that Trump's going to win because he's offering a vision. He's offering hope. He's offering, and they try to put him in a box, but we saw what he did, and we had again secure border, energy dominance, and peace and prosperity.
Senator Eric Schmitt of Missouri on America Right Now with Tom Basili. That's Saturday mornings, 9 o'clock Eastern, one of the many great weekend shows on Newsmax. You may have seen or heard RFK Jr.'s comments like 100 times by now, or maybe you haven't heard it at all. So this is exactly what he said.
Instead of showing us her substance and character, the DNC and its media organs engineered a surge of popularity for Vice President Harris based upon, well, nothing. No policies, no interviews, no debates, only smoke and mirrors and balloons in a highly produced Chicago circus.
Wow, that could not have been easy for Kennedy. He's getting a lot of backlash, even from his own family members, but he called it. I mean, talk a Kennedy from a dynasty, a Democrat dynasty, now backing a Republican and going against the deep state. He's a brave guy to stand up to this warped version of the Democrat Party that demonizes Trump for all the problems in the world. It's like they think we don't realize that Democrats, they're the ones that have controlled the White House for 12 of the last 16 years, and all the twerking in the world won't make things better at this point. Only Trump can.
That's Newsmax host Lidia on Sunday Agenda, and this was the Trump rally in Arizona over the weekend where he introduced Kennedy.
Tonight I'm very pleased to welcome a man who has been an incredible champion for so many of these values that we all share, and we've shared them for a long time. I don't think too many of you people have heard of him. He's very low-key. He's a very low-key person, but he's highly respected. He is a great person. I've known him for so long. For the past 16 months, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And he deserves it. He deserves it. For the past 16 months, Bobby has run an extraordinary campaign for President of the United States. I know, because he also went after me a couple of times. I didn't like it. And I mean this sincerely. Had he been allowed to enter the Democrat primary, he would have easily beaten Joe Biden, but they wouldn't let him in. They put up rules. I've never seen rules like he had to have 65% of the vote in order to run, little things like that. His candidacy has inspired millions and millions of Americans, raised critical issues that have been too long ignored in this country, and brought together people from across the political spectrum in a positive campaign grounded in the American values of his father, Robert Kennedy, a great man, and his uncle, President John F. Kennedy. And I know that they are looking down right now, and they are very, very proud of Bobby. I'm proud of Bobby. You want to know the truth? And I don't think I've ever introduced anyone that got applause like he just got. I must tell you, I don't think it's true. I don't think I've ever introduced anybody that got applause like that. Amazing. It's true. Amazing. Soon after I can't even believe I have to say this, nearly assassinated in Pennsylvania last month, Bobby called me to express his best wishes. He knows firsthand the risks incurred by leaders who stand up to the corrupt political establishment. When you stand up, you bring on some trouble for yourself, but you have to do what's right. You have to do what's right for the country. I will tell you, we are both in this to do what's right for the country. That's one thing I can tell you. He lost his father and uncle in service to our country, and Bobby himself was subject to repeated threats to his safety during the course of his campaign while being denied protection by the Harris-Biden administration.
Donald Trump with RFK Jr. in Arizona with a very enthusiastic crowd over the weekend. Let's go back to Lidia Curanaj for a moment, who had a look back at the highlights and lowlights of the Democratic National Convention.
Clearly, the theme of this DNC was simple. Hate Trump more than you hate your life right now. According to the Trump-Vance campaign, on just day one of the DNC, Trump was mentioned 147 times, economy 27 times, the border 8 times, inflation just 3 times, crime just 6 times. The entire DNC, it reminded me kind of a slick Hollywood production, like this kind of big summer blockbuster, Independence Day meets Titanic, with the award for Best Regime Puppet going to Kamala Harris.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
She said thank you 31 times there. I mean, like any overhyped movie, once the entire thing was over, what was the DNC even about? Kamala, she detailed zero policies. She took zero accountability for her role in all the chaos. Yet the fake news, it continues to exalt her.
You're going to remember where you were on this night. This is an inflection point in history.
Of course it is. Of course it is. This is an inflection point in history. No other presidential candidate has been openly installed by the oligarchs. I mean, who else do you think occupied those $5 million DNC luxury suites? Come on. You know, Kamala, she never received a single vote. She didn't get even to the first primary in Iowa. She was the first person to drop out when she ran. She has yet to even put out a single cogent policy, no press conferences. She won't do a single sit-down interview, yet she's the Democratic nominee for president. This is what's happening in our country. By supporting Kamala and the coup to overthrow Joe Biden, all of the people in that arena basically said, screw democracy. And here's the kicker. Those same sheep think that they are better than us. They think they're morally superior to us. Yet they're the same people advocating for the killing of the unborn outside of the DNC with an abortion van. Can you believe that? It's like this is how I picture it. This is my Oprah voice, right? You get an abortion, and we'll snip you. Hooray for everybody. Let's kill some babies. By the way, speaking of Oprah, I forgot what a great actress she is. Remember she was in The Color Purple? And here she is at the DNC pretending to be working class.
I have actually traveled this country from the redwood forests, love those redwoods, to the Gulf Stream waters. I've seen racism and sexism and income inequality and division. I've not only seen it, at times I've been on the receiving end of it.
Oh, poor Oprah. Oh, of course she had to lament the racism and sexism she's faced from a country that made her a multi-billionaire. Isn't she the richest woman in the country? But slick as the DNC production may have been, it didn't fool as many Democrat voters as they thought it would, Take a listen to this.
I can't vote for the status quo, and I was absolutely better off during Donald Trump's presidency than I am today.
Right, I say Kamala Harris, you say?
I'd say far left. I'd say woke.
Right on the money there, and it must have pained CNN to air that clip there of this voter. So, while they partied it up at the DNC in Chicago, all joyful, Trump was at the border again, doing what Kamala, who is supposed to be the border czar, has never done. Drawing attention to the victims killed by illegals, thanks, of course, to Biden and Harris's open border policies.
That's Lidia Curanaj on Newsmax's Sunday Agenda. Remember, 2 days after the Republican National Convention, Donald Trump went out and held a Make America Great Again rally, right? And he spoke to TV, radio, and podcasters all weekend long. Friday, after the Democratic National Convention, Vice President Harris flew back to the vice president's residence in D.C. for a respite. That's a quote from NBC News, by the way, a respite. And she wasn't to be seen for the rest of the weekend. She didn't campaign anywhere. She didn't go on any TV shows or answer not a one question. And the media just seems to be totally fine with that. This is Republican Senator Tom Cotton and Democratic Senator Bernie Sanders on ABC's This Week yesterday.
You would have thought watching the Democratic convention last week that the Democrats are not in office, that they're not in power, that they're campaigning against an incumbent Republican, when in reality, she's been part of the failures of the Biden-Harris administration for 4 years.
The vice president now has a very good chance to win it. She's certainly going to win the popular vote by millions of votes, and I think she has a great chance to win many of the battleground states.
President Trump or someone on his team was watching because he almost immediately took to social media to express his discontention with ABC and Jonathan Karl, saying they treated Tom Cotton very unfairly, and also is questioning why Vice President Harris will only do a debate on ABC, noting that she refused to do Fox, CBS, or even CNN, only wanting to do ABC. So there's a lot of talk about that program, about what Senators Cotton and Sanders said on the program, Donald Trump's social media posts concerning the program, and the fact that ABC's Jonathan Karl did call out a new Harris-Walz campaign ad featuring the border wall, saying, are they now trying to say that they're in favor of a border wall? And now, after a restful weekend, Vice President Harris and her vice presidential nominee, Tim Walz, are headed out on a bus tour. They'll be hitting several states, starting out with Georgia. And according to the campaign, at some point later in the week, the two are finally going to do their very first sit-down interview, which will be taped A taped interview, which will likely be edited. Wow, that's really something to look forward to. And at the same time, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance will be making several stops around the country, taking questions from reporters and voters live on the spot. I don't care how much you may want a woman of color in there, or how much you may dislike Donald Trump, how much Trump derangement syndrome you may be suffering from, but how people do not see what's going on here. A taped interview after what will be, like 5 weeks? Here's one more segment from the weekend shows with Rita Cosby and New York Representative Anthony D'Esposito.
Congressman, first of all, was it all smoke and mirrors by the Democrats? Your thoughts about their convention?
Absolutely. It was a well-orchestrated event, that DNC. And as we heard, it was they just continued to lie and gaslight the American people. No real policies, no plans. And I had my team actually do a little research. And if you rewind back to July of the same week, in 2024, many of the people who spoke at the convention were talking about the fact that Biden's economic policies are great and the country's doing well. And then you fast forward 1 month and those same people were on the stage at the DNC talking about how they're going to make the economy better. It's just they continue to lie to the American people. Now they're trying to say that they're the party that's tough on border when Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are the ones that left that border wide open. It's the most porous it's been. There's close to 15 million people that have come into this country illegally. They are not the party of law and order. They're not the party of securing the border. They're not the party of a good economy. And they're certainly not a party of foreign policy. The only thing that they are running on are social issues.
You know, you hit a lot of issues there. And of course, if you look at all the polls, Congressman, economy, border, those are huge issues for America. Trump always seems to do better. And yet it's interesting, the spin, because as we were just showing there, Kamala Harris pulls out a number and says, OK, well, Trump is going to raise your taxes. What is your reaction when you hear this? Is this all sort of deflection? Is she hoping somebody is going to buy it and not actually crunch the numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's twofold. I think that she can, again, is a professional at gaslighting. And secondly, they are hoping that the more they say it and the more certain mainstream media outlets continue to play it over and over and over again, that people will actually start to believe it. And it's insane. Over the last 3.5 years, it was her failed leadership. It was the failed leadership of Joe Biden that have put this country into the place that we're in today. And I mean, Politico just did an article a couple of days ago with regards to Democrats running in these tight seats in New York. They don't even have policies on their website because they don't have a policy. All they're just going to continue to say is, we can do it better. We can do it better. I mean, my opponent continues to talk about this bipartisan border deal where it didn't even pass the Senate, and it wasn't a solution to the problem. It was a surrender, just codifying all of the disastrous policies that Joe Biden put in place.
That's New York Congressman Anthony D'Esposito on Saturday Report with Rita Cosby. On Wall Street, it's going to be all about earnings this week, highlighted by AI giant NVIDIA after the bell on Wednesday. That is a major, major event. However, there'll be earnings from Dell, which is still trying to recover from its last disappointing earnings report. Salesforce, Best Buy, CrowdStrike, Kohl's, and others all reporting earnings this week. If you own any of those stocks, pay close attention. Personal income and spending numbers be out on Thursday and Friday. That could also be big after last Friday's positive comments from the Feds indicating an interest rate cut is coming. Keep up with all of the news all day and night long on Newsmax, newsmax.com, and make sure you're watching on Newsmax Plus for the most complete lineup of all your favorite shows and guests. Like Greg Kelly reports, Rob Schmitt tonight, The Record with Greta Van Susteren, who I can almost guarantee will be posting pictures of her dogs today on National Dog Day. Frontline with Carl Higbie, Chris Salcedo, Wake Up America, National Report, and more. There's special programming, documentaries, and more. NewsmaxPlus.com. Check it out. Get signed up. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Newsmax Daily. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Jerry Callahan from The Callahan Show. You can listen to us every day. We react to the latest news, politics, sports, and all the madness in the world. I'll give you my opinion with a little edge, a little attitude. I'm an unapologetic right-winger, trapped behind enemy lines in deep blue Boston, so I'm used to taking on the mainstream media mob. You can hear us anywhere you get your podcast, or you can listen every day at newsmax.com/listen.
It's our America. We conquered it. We built it. Great values like honesty and fairness. Great courage. A great nation needs a free press. Newsmax is it. 30 million Americans regularly go to Newsmax when they really need to know. They watch Newsmax TV at home. On the free Newsmax app, they go to newsmax.com. Start today. Newsmax is real news for real people.